If you've recently tried out the new Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity demo, chances are you've also had the displeasure of experiencing its, let's just say, less than favorable frame rate. In fact, the performance is so notably subpar that it's emerged as a topic of nearly any public discussion related to this demo since the demo was released. Naturally, we decided to objectively measure just how poor the frame rate was for this demo, and while we were expecting it to be pretty bad, the results from those measurements revealed some of the poorest performance results we've ever measured in a game we've analyzed. To underscore just how extensive some of the frame rate dips are, we're going to do things a bit differently this time and show you a few extended samples from both single player and split screen multiplayer, and offer some thoughts on our findings afterwards. Let's take a look. After reviewing the data, which we've hand-counted to verify for accuracy, to say that this game has a frame rate problem would be quite the understatement. When a game plummets to single-digit performance, and yes, you heard that right, some of the lowest measurements we've recorded reveal a staggeringly paltry 9 frames per second, the issue of playability becomes a real concern. Of course, Warriors games don't exactly require split-second reaction times, so slideshow-level performance might not be a deal-breaker for some, but it's certainly an issue for anyone looking for even a bare minimum level of fluidity in their gameplay. Once the perception of motion is broken, you no longer have a video game. You have a literal slideshow game, which is pretty astonishing to see in a product from a major publisher in 2020. But here we are. Now, to be fair to Koei Tecmo, it appears that they have taken some measures to prevent the game from being completely unplayable, like using significantly lower resolution shadows for all objects behind the player character's shadow, and using an aggressive level of detail management systems. There are also quite a few downgrades from the original Breath of the Wild, like the fact that all of the objects in Age of Calamity use independent wind animations instead of the more unified wind simulation system from Breath of the Wild, where all the grass, trees, particles, radiation fog, clouds, and much more appear to be affected by the same wind source, including its direction and force. Age of Calamity also lacks dynamic indirect lighting, ambient occlusion, and volumetric lighting solutions employed in Breath of the Wild, among other missing features. That isn't to say there haven't been any graphical additions to Age of Calamity compared to the original Breath of the Wild, as there certainly are with the addition of chromatic aberration effects during slow motion, and a new depth of field blur technique that not only blurs the background when it's out of focus, but will blur the foreground when it's out of focus as well. Age of Calamity also sports some decent resolutions for some textures, but on the whole there have been more downgrades than upgrades in terms of graphical features. Overall, the art direction and cell shading ensure that Age of Calamity's visuals retain the visual identity of the original Breath of the Wild even with the downgrades, though it hasn't really prevented the game from performing poorly. As a side note, the numerous grass blades in the demo appear to have no significantly negative effect on their performance in the demo, so the sheer number of rendered objects on screen in and of itself doesn't appear to be the problem, which makes the poor performance even more puzzling. Though in fairness, the blades appear to be using instance geometry, which wouldn't have the same computational load as a ton of individual objects issuing their own respective draw calls to the CPU. So what's the deal here? Well, after pixel counting several dozens of frames in the Age of Calamity demo, the game appears to be using a dynamic resolution scaler for the internal rendering resolution while rendering the HUD elements at native res. Normally, using a dynamic resolution would help a game like this to run more smoothly, but the problem seems to be with how poorly optimized the resolution scaler is. A significant portion of our pixel counts reveal an internal resolution of 810p in single player and 720p or thereabouts in split-screen multiplayer, even in scenes that are really demanding on the hardware, like whenever Impa and her clones attack a mob of enemies on screen at once. If the resolution scaler doesn't lower the resolution fast enough during demanding scenarios, it will inevitably result in a lower frame rate if the issue is GPU and/or memory related, which is consistent with what we've found with the data we've analyzed. With an efficient resolution scaler, we'd find a lot more frames at much lower resolutions, but that simply hasn't been the case with the data we've analyzed for this game. Having said that, this is just a demo, so things could change with the final build. But to go from bouts of single-digit performance to anything resembling a smooth frame rate would be a pretty tall order for any developer. At any rate, the Age of Calamity demo, while giving us a promising glimpse in terms of what to expect from the story in the full game, has certainly tempered our expectations in terms of what kind of performance we should expect. We can only hope the final build can deliver considerably better results if consumers are expected to actually pay for it. So there you have it, our technical analysis on the Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity demo. Let us know your thoughts and whether your experience with the demo was hindered due to these technical issues. Thanks guys for watching, and be sure to subscribe to Game Explained for more on Age of Calamity and plenty of other things gaming too. Until next time, bye!